Okay, I propose that we start. Welcome everyone on the demo of Ativo Agile programs for Jira. I will maybe first present myself. So I'm Edwin Rosy. I'm the founder of Ativo.io. I have more than 10 years of experience in program project and change management myself. I started in the more classical project management methodologies, and I've shifted towards Agile and Scrum methodologies. And today I'm a certified advanced Scrum Master in SAFe. And I would like to know, welcome Anne, what your experience is today with SAFe. Are you already using it? And with Jira, are you already using that tool? You can respond in the chat, or you can let me know. Welcome Michael as well. You can unmute yourself if you want, or just respond in the chat. So are you using SAFe already? Are you using Jira already? You can share that. So for today's agenda, we will cover the Ativo Agile Programs for Jira tool. That's a solution to do program increments, but also to do Scrum of Scrums and Art Syncs. I think that's a differentiation with the other products. So we'll go deeper into the features, into the commitments, into issues and risks, and also in the metrics and visuals. This session will take a bit more than 30 minutes, around 45 minutes. Maybe it depends a bit on the question. All questions are welcome during the session. We can make this interactive. You can ask your questions via chat, or you can unmute yourself if you want. I will explain the demo setting because we'll get directly to that. So today we'll take a look at a program that's called Program Blue, which has 4 teams in-house. So you have Team Lion, Team Rabbit, Team Horse, and Team Owl. And you also have a supplier, so a 5th team, but that 5th team will give a bit less permissions. Obviously, when you're doing Agile, you want to be as transparent as possible. So if you can, of course, you can give all the permissions to a supplier, but if you want, you can also reduce that. So we'll take a look at that as well. We'll take a look at the features. So the program has its own set of features, and we've defined a program increment or period with 7 iterations, so with 7 sprints. That's quite large. Usually they are shorter, but we can at least see that it's possible as well with 7 sprints. We'll use Jira software, and we'll use the plugin Ativo Agile Programs for Jira. So looking at the chat, so Michael, you're using SAFe and Jira already. Okay, that's great. The rest of you, if you want to share your experience, particular questions, always welcome. I will, if there's no questions on the setup, I will switch to the demo. We'll get started immediately. I'm switching screens. So you should see the plugin. So what we see here, we're inside Jira. Before I will go further with the plugin, I will show you the configuration that we just saw. So first of all, we have a project in Jira that has all the list of features. Technically in Jira, they're epics because Jira doesn't know the concept really of a feature. And so we've created a Kanban board with 3 simple steps to do in progress done. Obviously, if you're using Jira already, you know that you can configure it to whatever workflow that you want. So the thing that I wanted to show you is that we've prepared a set of features, and they're visible as well in a Kanban board. Each team has its own project. So we here see the backlog of Team Lion. And what you see here is that we've created 7 sprints. So we have sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Those are the 7 sprints of the iteration in which we'll do the program planning just in a bit. You also see the backlog. Usually you have a lot more stories. Last week we've done a test with 1 million tickets on a data center cluster with Jira running on it with 1 million tickets, and that was running fine. So, but for the demo now, I will just limit to a few stories here. And for supplier, it's the same. We've also created a project, and we've reduced the permissions on that so that the supplier can only see his project, but the rest of the organization, they can see the project of the supplier. So I will click at the top navigation bar. So what's to notice here is that we're really inside Jira. You don't have to leave Jira, you're really working inside Jira. And at the left bar, you see a navigation bar where you can select a program. So we have program blue, for example, and you can select a period or a program increment. Then there's a few buttons for the main navigation screens. We'll go into that in a bit. And then a few buttons with the settings and with some quick links. I will first select a program. We can select it here or here. So I will select program blue, the one we're talking about. And you see, as mentioned in the slides, that there are 5 teams in the program. So the 4 teams in-house and the 5th team, which is the supplier. I will then select a period. So we'll select this one. And we see that there are 7 sprints in it. So what you notice here is the welcome screen. It has a wheel in it, which represents the main steps that you have in every iteration, in every program increment. So you want to prepare. When you're using Agile, you want to prepare at least as possible, but you cannot start a program planning with nothing. You cannot start it from scratch and ask the first hours that the business, the product managers create the features. Those need to be created up front. And that's what we see here, that there's 11 features that are already pre-selected in the period. Then we have the planning itself with some key figures on it, a number of features and stories. And then we have the deliver and learn step, which is the most important. And we'll zoom into each of these steps. I will now click, before I will click at the planning, I will also let you show you the configuration. If you click on teams, you can see the different teams. In another setup, we had much more teams. We had around 50 teams created. So each team is linked to a project in Jira, or they can share a project. That's all possible. So you see here Team Lion, Team Horse, Team Owl, and Team Eagle. You also see the program which is program blue with the different features and the different teams. Anna, do you want to ask a question? Because you're unmuted. Oh, okay. And you see for the period, the different teams with the sprints in it. So I will now click on plan. I will go to the PI planning model or the program planning model. I think this is what's the most interesting for you. So what you see here is a program board with the different teams. You have Team Lion, Team Horse, Team Owl, the platform team, and the supplier team. I've renamed one of the teams to platform team. And each team has 7 sprints. So you have teams sprint 1 till sprint 7. And you also have an unplanned sprint, and that's handy if you want already to indicate that a certain feature or a certain story will be taken up by a specific team, but it's not planned in yet. So that's handy if you're just in the days before the program increment planning, before the PI planning, and you want to indicate the ownership of a feature. I will first add some features. So by clicking on add features, we can select the features from the project that we just saw and add them in the program increment. Because they were already planned in, they're already visible in certain sprints, but I can, of course, drag and drop them to each sprint that I want. So I will drag and drop this feature, for example, to the sprint of this team. We can also create features. So I will just create it. Newly created feature, add it, and you will see it's visible here on the backlog, and I can drag and drop it as well immediately in a sprint. So plan it in. I will do it like that. So what you see here are the feature, the newly created feature. If I would go back to the Kanban board and I will refresh it, what you see is that it's also visible here. So we're really working inside Jira with the data that's also available for the teams. So what you also see are the stories. So these are the green boxes and the dependencies line, the cross-team dependency line. So we have line 15, for example, as a story. That's a dependency for feature tree. And the system can calculate dependencies automatically. It can see if a certain story is a cross-team dependency if the feature is owned by a different team. So if I would put this team, for example, this feature in the same team as team line, you will see that the dependency disappears because the story and the feature are in the same team. And if I would put it back, it would reappear again because it says, okay, we have a story of one team and it's working for a feature of another team. So we make that visible, which is quite handy because it saves time. You don't have to manually click on every story to say, yes, it's a dependency. If it's linked to a feature of another team, it will detect it automatically. We can also add them manually. So I will stay with feature 3, which is in the second team. And I will add a newly created story, which I will put in team line, for example, in sprint 3. If I click on add, what you see is that this story, this dependency is added and it's linked to the feature. If I would go to the backlog of team line and I will refresh, you see that the manually created story is visible here. So again, it's synchronized. And if the team says, yeah, of course, we need to do that story, but we cannot plan it in sprint 3. We want to plan it a bit later, let's say in sprint 5. So I'm dragging and dropping in the backlog the story from one sprint to the other. There's a small warning here, but that's because I've started already the sprints. That's default behavior of Jira. So the manually created story is now here in sprint 5. And if I refresh here, I will click on refresh. You will see that the story, it was in sprint 3, it's now in sprint 5. So again, we're working in Jira and the data is synchronized, or with a simple refresh, you pull in the latest changes. We had a client last month who was doing a PI planning with teams that were spread around the globe. They had people working in the Americas, they had people working in Europe, and they had people working in Asia and Australia. So they were using this tool and they were able to work together remotely. So that was a big success. So that's, I think, an advantage that if you're working in Jira, that you don't have to get out of Jira. I will now click on details because if I click on details, what we see here are, and I will remove the chords, I will click on chords to remove that. What we see here are some options that are interesting when you're doing a PI planning in SAFe. So if we take a look at the feature 5, for example, first thing is the story points. I will remove it because by default it will take the stories. If it's empty, it will take the story points from the stories that are under it. We can add a commitment level, so committed or uncommitted or stretch. So let's say it's committed, and let's say we'll put it on amber, and we'll put a risk to it. So let's add a specific risk, at risk because of COVID. Why not? And I will save that. So it's a bit the equivalent of what you would do in a physical board. If there's an issue or risk, you would put a post-it to it and add a flag to it and say, okay, this is amber, this is red. You can do it as well here digitally. And I think it's quite strong because as a release train engineer and as a Scrum Master or as a product manager or product owner, you want to quickly focus on the issues and risks. You don't, if the planning is going well, you don't want to focus on all the details. So that's possible. And the same can be done with the dependency stories. So for example, we can put for this story, this is green, let's put it in amber. And let's also say there's an issue on this one with a new technology, X, Y, Z. So I've done that. What I want to show you as well is, I will remove the details and add the chords again. What I want to show as well, if you're working with a lot of teams, for example, you have 10 teams, you might have a quite large program board. You might have a lot of dependencies. So what you can do with the filter actually is to quickly locate some features or to zoom on a team. So what we can do, let's find a feature or story which has clients. So we immediately can filter on that. We have a question from Marco. In my former project using SAFe, we created PI objective derived from a planned features, including a business value vote 1 to 10, which were reviewed and voted again in the PI system demo. Inspect and adapt. This is possible here. Good question. It's not possible in the tool itself because I think it works really well if you use Excel or any other tool. What you can do is set at the feature level the commitment, and that's taken into account in the metrics which you will see later. Good question, thanks Marco. We can also zoom on a specific team, and I think that's very handy if you're a product owner or a Scrum Master and you just want to see the team. So we've selected Team Horse. So what's it's showing here is actually only the stories and feature of Team Horse and also the dependencies. So I think that's useful to have a quick view and to filter away all the other stories. You can also filter away even the linked tickets like that. We can also filter on planned, on the commitment level, red, amber, green colors, or the types, just see features or stories. So I think that's what I wanted to show you for the PI planning itself. But I think the largest challenge, it's not just the planning itself, but it's also the day after the PI planning and the days after PI planning, the weeks after, where you have the real life coming up, where you have the issues and risk, and you want to do a follow-up. So to do that, I will click on progress. And then on per team, there's two options. And what we see here is a dashboard, which is very useful for Scrum or Scrums, or even at the end of the PI, where you can show the picture per team, the dashboard per team. And what you see there are at the top left, the features and dependencies and the colors that they have. So again, for the release train engineer, the Scrum Master, to see quickly the status of the team and the issues and risks that we just defined. So for example, at risk because of COVID, we've added that one, and the issue with the new technology was added as well. So that's visible there. So you can really zoom on that in the Scrum or Scrums. At the bottom, you have the different sprints. And what we see here are the features and the dependency story. So for the features, we see the progress with the pie chart. So currently, they're not delivered yet. And we also see the baseline sprint. And that's the sprint in which it was originally planned in the PI planning. But if there are stories under it that are shifting towards a later sprint, the system sees it and it says, yeah, okay, it was planned in sprint 3. But because there's a story under it in sprint 5, it's currently delivered at least in sprint 5 or later. So it's moving along. And what you also see are the dependency stories, not with chords, because it would be messy. We have quite a few dashboards if you have 10 teams and chords going all around. So actually here it's annotated simply as like this. We see here that we have a story, line 15. Which is a dependency for a feature in another team. So it's a dependency for feature 3 in Team Horse. At the top right, we see the metrics. And I will actually, I will just explain the beginning, but we'll come back to that in just a bit. So what you see here horizontally are the different sprints, and vertically the story points. In blue, you have the total amount of story points that are planned in the current PI. And in purple, it's also the story points planned in, but also that are committed. So because we've selected commitment level on the features, the tool knows, okay, we have 14 and a half story points that are committed and a total of 39 story points committed and uncommitted together. And if we click on a point, it will give you the data below it. So that's useful if there's someone in the teams that say, yeah, okay, but why is it 39 and not 40 or 38? Well, you see the details here. So what I will do now is to go to, again, to the board of Team Line, and I will simulate that they're delivering stories, and we'll see how that looks then. So I've opened the board of Team Line. I will switch sprints to the first sprint. I will put the first story on done. I will go to the second sprint and also put a few stories on done. Let's maybe leave one open. So let's leave this one in progress. And I will go back to the tool and I will say in the settings that let's assume that we've finished the second sprint. So I'll submit it. So what do we see now? Let's go back to the team progress view. So the first thing that we see is that the pie charts, they're getting filled. So we see that for this feature, there's 7.5 story points. Okay, the teams, they have delivered 2. This feature 1, it's 7.5 story points. Okay, 7 story points are delivered. So it's very visual, and that's a bit the aim behind the tool, because we want to promote human interaction over processes and tools, as the Agile Manifesto says. So what we actually want to do is to show visually some interesting things that can be used for a product owner, for a Scrum Master, or a release train engineer to say, to ask questions, or to say, okay, okay, we see that it's delivered, that's good. It also saves time if you can show the progress instead of telling it. At the previous client, we're able to reduce the time of the Scrum of Scrums with 50%, so by half, simply by showing the progress. Because if people, the Scrum Masters, they come up front and they tell about the progress, they tend to explain a lot of details, and if they can simply just show it and say, okay, this is on track, we don't need to talk about it, let's really focus on the few issues and risks that need to be talked about, and the dependencies that we need to talk about. So that's what we see here, and we also see the metrics at the top right have been updated. I will remove a few lines just to get started. So let's start like that. So in blue, we still have the total line. And in black, what we see are the actuals, cumulated actuals, and we have a burn-up chart. If we enable the gray line again, it gives a forecast, and it shows actually, and this is a question a release train engineer probably has often, okay, if the teams are progressing with the current velocity, will they be able to deliver the stories or not? And this metrics, this burn-up chart, gives a preview of that, gives an indication on that. So the gray line is the linear forecast, and we see, okay, no, if they just keep the same velocity, average velocity, they will not get there. But if we put the purple line again with the committed features, okay, we can say, yeah, but very probably already in sprint 3, they will be able to deliver everything that was committed. So that's at least it's that. And we can also see optimistic and a pessimistic forecast. That's the green line and the orange line. The green line, it's according to the fastest sprint velocity, and the orange it's according to the slowest sprint velocity. So if this team keeps up their highest sprint velocity, somewhere at the end of sprint 7, near the end of sprint 7, they will be able to deliver all the story points that were planned in. So that's what we see here in these forecasts. And that's what I wanted to show you. I wanted to respect the timing. I will now go back to my other slide, and I will take questions if you have. I can also unmute you if you prefer to ask it with your microphone, that's possible, or in the chat. I'll give you a minute if you're typing your question. While we're waiting for questions, maybe let's also take a look at maybe a testimonial. So that's a testimonial from a previous client. I was working with them. So we have Cindy. She's a release train engineer, so a program manager. She was using the tool, and she was very happy with the forecasts, with this predictability, the metrics, because that's something that's important to her. Because the program was delivering some key deliverables, some products that also need to be aligned with the marketing plan. So the timing was important to have a view on that. That was very useful for her. And Laura, she's a director at the back office, so at the business side. So product manager, and she really appreciated the overview that we had of the features and programs. And that's something I can still show you actually. because we didn't see that yet. If I click here on progress and then on total, what we see there is an overview for the whole program with all the features, all the dependencies, all the issues and risks, and for all the features, the status where it is in terms of delivery. So you see the pie charts, and at the top right, you see for the whole program, the forecast. It's quite low in this demo because we just closed stories in one team, of course, so obviously, but we can, of course, if the other teams deliver more, of course, this burn up would be better. We have some questions. So a question from Marco. The features are epic objects here, right? Yes, that is correct. Can also link features to real epics, for example, given the portfolio Kanban. Actually, we support one level on top of the story. So you have the stories or the other issues like risk, like spikes or bugs or custom types that you've created. And on top of that, we have one layer, which is technically in Jira an epic layer, but which we call a feature layer. So we support at this moment 2 layers. We're not supporting 3 layers with epics, features, and stories. A question from good question. Thanks, Marco. We might consider it. It's on our roadmap, but at this moment, that's the status. Michael, very nice tool. You're saying. Thank you. We're working with Jira Align at the moment. Is there synergy? No, we're not. We're not working with Jira Align, but we can work with the vanilla, I would say, Jira setup. So if you have your stories and features inside simple Jira projects, we can use it in the tool, in the Ativo tool, and you can use it in Jira Align as well. But we will not interact directly with Jira Align. So the synergy is at the level of Jira. And I think the added value of using the Ativo tool is, I think, because of the visuals that you have for the art sync and Scrum of Scrums, which in Jira Align, if I understand correctly, are not there. So good question, Michael, thanks. Okay, if there's no other questions, I will wrap up then, and I want to thank you for your attendance. I will send you the slides, and I'll also send you the recording of the session if you want to take a look at some parts again, or if you want to share it with the team, or if you want to if you came in a bit later and you want to take a look at the beginning of this session. So I want to thank you for your attention, and if there's any question, you can always reach us by email or via LinkedIn or any other channel that we have. So thanks a lot, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, Marco.